folks. Welcome on into the Crossing Swords podcast presented by Batavia Downs Gaming and Hotel. And the Buffalo Sabres are nearing the end of their Olympic break. It feels like it's been 30 years since we last saw the blue and gold on the ice. It feels like it's been 30 years since we've had, Crossing Swords podcast episode with you guys. It's been, kind of a crazy last month. We've been doing live shows on location, in the Sabres break, whatnot. But I'm glad to have you guys here. Bunty, how are things with you? Sabres on their break. It's good to see you again, sir.
Yeah, I'm going through Sabres withdrawal right now. I'm struggling. I've been extremely bored the last 2 weeks. Now, happy to see the Team USA women's team win gold today. Hopefully the men can follow them up and take some gold in Italy as well. But, yeah, I need hockey back. Thank God it's back next week because I am struggling right now.
Yeah, I'm going through football withdrawals, even though the season just ended. I'm going through Sabres withdrawals a little bit. The Bonnies have not quite fulfilled those withdrawals for me. They've went through their fair share of struggles. But, I'm excited for the season to return. It's been cool to watch the Olympics. I've been quite busy. I haven't had a chance to watch a lot of it, but definitely have caught up on the highlights. It's good to see, some of our guys. I know Dahlin just got bounced, but good to see Tage doing well. And good to see the team back on the ice as well. I'm sure we'll talk about it. But not only do we have a nice stretch of games coming up ahead, but they're also very, very important here. And we have a chance to break a 15-year drought. So fired up.
Yeah, exciting times. And, we're in the midst of this Olympic break right now where the Sabres sent two players, as everyone knows, Rasmus Dahlin, Tage Thompson. They went head-to-head in the last game where USA wins in overtime. And, that's the end of the tournament for Rasmus Dahlin. He had 1 goal, 4 assists, 5 points in 5 games. It's weird. You didn't see a single shift in that overtime 3-on-3. I know he got kind of slewed foot at the end of the third period, kind of worried if he was okay, but doesn't see a shift in overtime. USA, Tage move on. Tage, is kind of fallen in, the USA lineup where, he's on that fourth line. He's, seeing maybe like 9 minutes a game, but he's still in that first power play unit for USA. Bunty, I guess just your initial thoughts of the Olympics, seeing, Tage and Dahlin doing what they're doing and what's, going to be, can Tage win gold as they move on to the semis here?
Yeah, it's been good seeing both of those guys on the ice. Obviously, Dahlin getting a little bit more play this year than he did last year in the Four Nations tournament, making an impact for Sweden. That was cool to see, although it was kind of scary having Dahlin go down in the corner late in the game against USA. Now, it looks like he's okay. He spoke to reporters afterwards, so I believe that that's a good sign, and I wouldn't overly worry about anything from him. Tage, obviously the 2 goals, and that's nice. You don't know what to expect. He's not getting a ton of ice time. They're not playing him in critical moments where they're trying to hold on to a lead, which means that they obviously have the scouting report that we do in Buffalo where if you need some offense, take advantage of him on the power play, but really don't put him in risky situations. But they have a chance to win gold, something that Team USA hasn't done since 1980. So if Tage is part of a team that does that would be amazing, especially since they ended their World Championship drought with him last year. So I'm hoping they get it done for Tage, but most importantly for the Sabres, I just hope that he stays healthy and that nothing bad happens to him in these final games before coming back to the U.S.
Yeah, definitely a little bit of a scare with Dahlin. Good to see that he's likely okay. But, yeah, I can see why the NHL was against having their guys, play in the Olympics for a little bit. You look at what happened with Kevin Fiala. His season's done with. You look at what happened with Sidney Crosby. He's banged up a little bit too. I'm sure these guys are going to be feeling it. There's probably things that they're not releasing or injury purposes. Maybe that aren't enough to show up in the injury report, but just enough to affect you. You're sore. You're playing a lot of games. You're playing at different times. You're playing across the world. Those are all factors that I can definitely see that play into why the NHL didn't have the players play since like 2014, 2012, whatever the last time was, maybe 2010. But
14.
Yeah, it's good to see everyone back. Hopefully, though, most importantly, with these guys being a lot of the NHL stars, it's good to see these guys, for the most part, stay healthy. As long as, Dahlin's all right, and as long as he's healthy, And as long as Tage is doing just dandy when he comes back and is healthy and ready to go, I think that's a tremendous thing. Obviously, these guys are playing for their country. I think that means at this point in time, maybe a little bit more than what happens down the road here. You're never guaranteed to have another Olympic run. So, I'm obviously rooting for Tage. Hopefully he can bring home gold and help contribute to bringing home gold to the United States. And that'd be really, really terrific to see. But just kind of one game at a time at this point, one game closer. I'm fired up, though, for the rest of these Olympics, and more importantly for us to get back into the swing of things here, hopefully more healthy than how we left going into the Olympic break as a team for the Sabres.
Definitely, and it's so, just great to see NHL players back at the Olympics. Each game has just been must-watch. Shout out to the USA women for winning gold today over Canada, Williamsville native Haley Skimora for getting her first gold medal. So great things all around there for, Western New York and the Olympics and hockey and everything there. Just big thing with Tage going down the stretch, obviously just healthy. That's all anyone ever wanted going to these Olympics, was to get, Dahlin and Tage back in one piece. But excited to see, how Tage does on the stretch in these games, getting the most of the limited minutes he has, getting maybe a goal in there on the power play. We saw him get the golden goal in the World Championships last year. So, he's hot when needed. So hopefully if they get to overtime again, they'll actually put him out there with his, ability to win a game like that. But we will see as this Olympics continue to go on. And as the Olympics go on, the Sabres are actually back on the ice as of yesterday. They're holding some team practices where it's been a little bit of, getting some guys back. We've seen Josh Norris, Josh Dunn, UPL return to skating after not seeing them in a Sabres lineup for quite some time. We're still missing Zach Benson from practice. We're, still have a week until the Sabres play again. So it's not, hitting the panic button on Zach Benson returning, but it's nice seeing the Sabres on the ice. Bunty, what's it mean to you to see guys, and maybe just the importance of these guys, of having Josh Norris? Josh Dunn's a name we don't really talk about too much, but the importance he could bring to the lineup, and, even Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, where, the Sabres goaltending has been solid, but having him in probably won't hurt going down the stretch.
Yeah, I think it's vital to get a lot of these guys back. The name you mentioned that didn't return, unfortunately, is Zach Benson. And I don't know if we really even have any sense of what his situation is. We all knew he was hurt. We saw the injury, but I don't believe we've been told an actual time frame of when he's expected to return. And NHL teams are so intentionally vague. You can go from being day-to-day to being out over a month with some of these injury reports.
What's Josh Norris? He was day-to-day, and it's been forever.
So I'll say this. I'm glad that Josh Norris appears to be good to go once this break ends. The Sabres need him. And I've been pretty consistent with this throughout the season, that Norris is probably the third best skill player on the Sabres behind Dahlin and Thompson. When you talk about what Norris brings to the table, he is high-end talent. Now, health has always been a concern in staying on the ice, but it's no coincidence that their hot streak really started when Norris came back, and that's when they really got going. And if we're being it's tough when you're talking about this stretch of Sabres success, because they had the 10-game winning streak. They were playing well. Before that, when they were losing, they still had some decent metrics, but their goaltending stunk. And then even after 10-game winning streak, they had their next 10 to 13 games were pretty solid after that. But along the way, it did feel like they were taking a little bit of a step in the wrong direction. Not saying that like it was a sign to be overly concerned. They were still winning a lot of games, but it felt like, I know they had the 5 games where they were leading by at least 3 goals in each of them, and they were winning, and you were playing from ahead, and that's why some of the numbers are going to be lopsided, because you're holding on to leads and you're not attacking. But it did appear late that when Helenius was kind of becoming a little bit of a liability, you're relying a little bit too much on guys like that. The depth was being tested a bit on the bottom end of the Sabres roster. You could see that without Benson, it was impacting a little bit of their forecheck, a little bit of their creativity, that they were missing a little bit of that element, and their offense kind of became more of a, we're either going to finish or we're not going to finish. And that feels a little bit like the Sabres of the previous couple years. And then even defensively, it's been, not that this is a horrible thing, but it's been relying so much on Dahlin, Samuelson, Power, and Byram that you're wearing them out. Metza and Bryson really couldn't contribute much. So not that all these guys are going to play when eventually healthy, but getting guys like Dunn to where you can put him in every once in a while and maybe switch things up if you need to, and not have to rely on guys like Tyson Kozak to play. And then hopefully at some point down the line, I don't know if Timmins is out the rest of the year or how much time he's going to miss, but
he should be back.
Hopefully Timmins can fit in on a third pair at some point coming down the stretch, and Benson can come back. You can get him back in the mix, and then you also have the ability to make a trade. Maybe you get another, not a shutdown. You're not going to get that for like a third pair D-man, but maybe a more reliable person to be on your third D pair and really get things going down the stretch. So it's not that I expect major differences in play after this break, but I'm hoping that getting a break and getting some of these guys back can maybe be the refreshing thing that they need to get back on track a little bit and keep things going.
I'm so glad you brought up the defense core, because you look at the way this kind of turned out for the last 5 to 7 games. And it was even probably a little bit before that too, but they were riding the Samuelson, Power, Dahlin, and who's the other one? Kesselring, maybe? I forgot. Regardless, the top 4 were playing 50 of the 60 minutes a night. Bryson and Metza, if they were paired together, whoever the alternate pairing was for them, they'd be playing like 10 minutes a night. Yeah, they did a nice job in what they were doing. You can't ask much more from that. But that's not sustainable over time. Either A, you're going to have an injury because your guys are there's no worker regulation at this point anymore. Or B, your guys are going to get worn down, fatigued, and they're in all likelihood going to make more mistakes, thus creating some more difficulty in playing in transition, everything like that. It's just a domino effect if you continue to play like that. I mean, the good news is, like Bundt brought up, Connor Timmins, he'll likely be back. I think great penalty killer. Hopefully he can provide some help there, because the penalty kill towards the end there was starting to diminish a little bit. They've been really lights out for majority of the year, but they started to fall back to earth, I'd say, maybe is the best way to describe that. And then you also look at, hopefully, Kesselring. He spent a night out in the press box, got to observe, a night. Sometimes that does work. Kesselring, I'm still really not that worried about him. I'd like for him to improve his play. It has not been. It's just the type of thing where it's like, thank gosh we have, Josh Doan. But Kesselring, I expect him to have a solid, final 25 games here. I am going to be looking for him to grow, continue to adapt to Lindy's system a little bit, and continue to try to find his confidence in his game. And if that can happen, it's going to relieve a lot of pressure for your top 4 defensemen. And they very well could make a small minor move. Right now, if the playoffs started and you're going to tell me Zach Metza's in the playoff lineup, nothing against Zach Metza. I'm a big fan of him. I feel like there's a little to be there's a lot to be desired in that situation, right? It doesn't feel like there's a true bruiser right now type of guy. Like Sammy, he's physical. So is Dahlin, but I don't need Dahlin to be physical every night. Maybe that they're going to look for somebody like that. Not just
that what you're hoping for Kesselring to be.
Not just a pure enforcer. No. I'm talking about if they acquire somebody at the deadline.
Okay.
So a more, I don't know, he can play 13 minutes a night, 15 minutes a night, more veteran type of presence. Offensively, though, to me, it goes to the special teams. I think the power play, they need more from that, plain and simple. Power play hasn't been effective as it should be. You look at guys like Tage Thompson and Dahlin, those guys are getting power play minutes with their Olympic team. That means, the hockey universe respects them as that. And when you have both of those guys, 2 Olympians who are getting power play one time against other Olympians and have been dominating, to me, that gives me a sign that's like, well, what's the issue here? I don't know if it's the system that's set up for the power play. It just kind of seems there's the potential for this power play is a lot better than what the reality is we're getting. And then as far as, 5-on-5, just got to get healthy. I think Zach Benson's huge. You're never going to have all your guys, right? But I think a lot of guys are forgetting Justin Danforth might be coming back. I don't know where they're going to find a spot for him. But he's a player you can play in the middle six. He can play on your fourth line. He's a versatile player. And also, what's the deal with Greenway? I know he's been dealing with a lot of maintenance stuff, right? And I know they're vague with their how they talk about injuries. But if Greenway's not going to be able to go 100% and help this team every night, at this point, you're going to have to look into what is it, like a third hernia surgery for him or in a secondary option. So I think a lot focuses right now is if this top six can stay healthy, specifically Norris, Thompson, Tuck, those guys, because they're finishing for years now, has been above average, if not elite. I expect that to continue. And if that can't continue and you can, put a little equilibrium to your defensive minutes and hopefully get some stops in net, I can't see how this really flips into a 180 and everything goes south for the Sabres when we return.
Definitely. And it feels like this break came at the perfect time for them where, they started to slide a little bit. We saw the kids maybe not be to the level they first were when they, made their debut with the Sabres on this great run. And the Sabres, again, just getting guys back healthy. We talked about, just the impact Josh Norris has when he's, actually in the lineup for the Sabres, the speed he has, being able to get a couple shorthanded goals. Him and Tuck were great together. We, raved all preseason about, him centering Tage on the first line. A big one too, just Zach Benson. I'm interested to see when he can get back for the Sabres because Sabres are 4-8-2, I believe, without Benson in the lineup this season.
Which is 4-9-2 now.
Yeah, whatever it is, it's not great. It's not a number you're looking at. Okay, this gives me reassurance when he's not in the lineup, but he just brings so much to this team that may not show up on the stat sheet exactly, but the energy he brings. We've seen Josh Doan kind of take over that role a bit as well. So having hopefully get Benson back healthy. We'll see when he starts skating again with the Sabres. UPL, we've seen throughout the season, they found a goalie to get hot and carry him when they need. UPL has done that throughout the course of the season at different times. So having him back will be good. Brought Justin Danforth will be great. I'm very excited, though, for Connor Timmins because he's missed, I think, over 20 games for the Sabres since he's been hurt. He is still second on the team in block shots, which doesn't make any sort of sense to me that he's still at that point missing so many games. So having him back is going to really boost the Sabres, third pairing, which you guys talked about, but also the penalty kill. We've seen the PK kind of falter a bit as of recently where they weren't, world beating. They were first and second in the NHL basically all season. I think they're down to like 7th or 8th right now. They've kind of faltered in the last couple of weeks. Getting him back should hopefully help that out where he can eat some pucks, make this team better. And I'm just interested to see what Lindy Ruff, what Jarmo Kekalainen does with the Sabres team, in the lineup that we have. When you guys bring guys back healthy, they sent down Konsta Helenus at the break. Imagine he's going to stay down there. It'd be very interesting to see what this process is going to look like going forward for the Sabres team and really what, the difference is going to be for this blue and gold. It's going to be a crazy, crazy stretch here in the final 25 games. Now, we've seen the Sabres team in recent years and every year go through great highs and great lows. Bunty, my question for you is what is going to be maybe the biggest thing for you to look for where, to get this team to the highs, to get them over the finish line? What's going to be the biggest impact part for the Sabres team moving forward in this last 25 games?
Yeah, that's a good question. What do they need to be the biggest impact? I feel pretty confident that this team has scoring when they're healthy. They've shown it over multiple years. Now, if Benson's out a sustained period of time, I'm going to be worried. I'll even one up that. If Benson is out a significant period of time, I would pick them to miss the playoffs. If Benson is back within a couple weeks, then I feel pretty confident. And it's not that Benson is the end-all be-all for this roster, but he just does so many things on this team that other players don't do, that losing him, I think, would be a very hard thing for them to recover. Now, what will they have to do, I think, down the stretch to be the team that I expect them to be? I think defensively, they kind of took a little bit of a step backwards during the last maybe handful of games before the break. Not that they were bad, but at one point they got up to, I believe, 12th in expected goals allowed. And entering the break, I believe they fell closer to 17th or 18th in that number. So that is reflective of a kind of a little bit of a weaker stretch by them. And then I do believe they're going to need to have Alex Lyon and UPL carry them in net, because even though I would say offensively is the strength of this team when healthy, they do finish at a high rate, and sometimes that's not sustainable, and it's going to be hard to consistently rely on that, especially if you do have injuries over time. So I do believe goaltending and defensive play is going to be very important for this team if they're going to make a run for the playoffs. But I would also, like I said, number one, got to make sure you have Benson back and hopefully Norris healthy.
Yeah, I think the biggest difference right now going forward is going to have to be goaltending. You look at Luukkonen before he had the injury, he looked like he was starting to really catch a rhythm. He was playing extremely strong and consistent hockey. Alex Lyon, he won 10 games in a row, which set a franchise record. That's just unheard of. Yeah, he's not going to win his next 10 games. At least that's what the odds would tell you. But pair that with Ellis as well. The 3 goalie thing is still kind of weird, but fingers crossed it's really worked out for them this year. Besides maybe a month span before Adams got fired, it's just one guy goes down, somebody else fills in. Colton Ellis has a concussion that puts him out 2 weeks, and then a week after Ellis returns, UPL has an unfortunate injury. For those guys, though, I think they're going to have to put the team on their back on some of these nights. We saw the defense slip a little bit towards the end. They've been solid for majority of the season. With that said, though, we also saw times where Alex Lyon would just steal games left and right. Lyon, he's a guy who's a little bit of a roller coaster at times. That's what you're going to get out of a guy like Alex Lyon. But we need that peak to kind of hit right now, I think, at the right time. We saw it with Florida a few years ago with what he did there with the Panthers, where he just won an absolute run, earned himself some playoff time. It's going to take a little bit of luck when it comes to goaltending to get this drought to be broken. Scoring, yes, they can score. At the same time, though, they lack in the special team department from the power play. They don't contribute a ton there. And the penalty kill, you don't know what you're going to have coming out of break and how they're going to adjust as a staff. So, for me, goaltending's huge. If you can get Luukkonen back, preferably sooner rather than later, hopefully he can catch his rhythm again. Hopefully Ellis can continue to give you some secondary goaltending support, whoever the backup is on nights that Lyon isn't kind of the guy. But for me, it's goaltending through and through. I think they're going to have to make some really big saves and some big times on the final 25 games to give the Sabres a shot. They're playing a very difficult schedule. They're going to need them.
And I do want to add one thing on goaltending before I toss it back to you, Gatesy.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard some people saying that if the Sabres make the playoffs, they have to decide who their number 1 is versus who their number 2 is. And quite
number
frankly,
3 for that matter.
I honestly don't even look at it as they have a 3 goalie situation right now. I think it's more every time that they would have been pressed about it in recent months, somebody's just gotten hurt and it's just played out that way. But I don't really think they need to have a guy versus the number 2, especially when the play is so similar to each other. You just go with whoever's the hot hand. If Lyon's playing better at the time, you play Lyon if they make the playoffs. If UPL's playing better, you play UPL. But I did hear something. I really don't agree with this at all. There's some people talking on the radio saying, if they get to the playoffs, you got to go with UPL. I don't get that vibe at all. And I maybe it's the thought maybe UPL has a higher upside, but to me, it's
Lyon.
Yeah, Lyon has been consistent. Honestly, if you look at what Lyon has given the Sabres this year, that's their best signing in quite some time. He has a .913 save percentage right now. That's the best the Sabres have had in net, I believe, and not counting like Craig Anderson, like the one hot stretch he had. But like if you're talking about like sustained goaltending, like for like a large quantity, you're probably talking like Linus Ullmark, like the last time they had a goaltender that was putting up numbers like this. So and it's been 27 games. So we said before the year, what's Lyon going to play? Probably half the games. Well, if he plays half of the remaining games, he's at 39 to 40. So I think that's a good sign. UPL has stepped up. Like the version of UPL that we're seeing this year is a goaltender that you're okay with splitting the games. He's serviceable. He's not blowing me away. Like he's not somebody that you're going to say, oh, this guy has to be their starting goalie for like the next 3 years. But you're saying, okay, you get a combo of him and Lyon, like you can get by. And the ironic part is, Matt, when you're talking about Colton Ellis, he actually isn't playing horrendous. He's basically playing the level that the Sabres starting goaltenders have been for the last 3-4 years. So when you realize how bad the Sabres goaltending has been the last 4 years, you don't want that to be like your main option. But if Colton Ellis has to be your third goalie and play in a moment, I'm okay with that. Like some people talk about Colton Ellis like he's some scrub that shouldn't even be in the NHL. Colton Ellis has shown like he is good enough to be an NHL backup goaltender. Now, like you don't want to play him too much, but I'm with you, Carson. I do think that goaltending is going to have some moments down the stretch, because even though everybody talks about just needing points in half the games, their schedule gets difficult. And I think that it's not a given. And I don't want to be overconfident going into this stretch.
Yeah, the goaltending's really been the Sabres like unsung hero for where they're at right now, between, Lyon stepping up, UPL going from, oh, we need to trade his ass, cut him right now. Like, why is he in the net at the start of the year? To he's very serviceable for the Sabres right now. He's, been winning him games. Look at that Toronto game, his first game back when, gave up that late third period goal. Everyone was ready to just kick him out of town right away. He's been able to find his game. In terms of just, Sabres get to the postseason, who's in net, that's not a thing the Sabres need or have to decide now. The whole reason they've had goaltending success is they've been riding that hot hand all season. They've been able to have guys step up when called upon. Colton Ellis, exactly. He talked about it briefly, but every time he's had to step in with basically his job on the line, he has stepped up in a big way for the Sabres. Every time he'll go weeks, months without playing, step in and win a game for the Sabres. He's done such a good job at when expectations for him are the lowest, he raises the bar and, keeps the Sabres momentum going where he's in the net. I'm not too concerned with how things are going to go. The Sabres have to definitely bail him out in some rebounds at times, but overall, you can't complain with how the Sabres are at. In terms of just bigger picture stuff, my thing I'm most, interested in what's going to get the Sabres over the top is, we know they have Tage Thompson, they know Rasmus Dahlin. We know what they're going to bring for the most part every single night. It's what are they going to get from their 1Bs? Your Alex Tuck. What's that going to look like for him? On the defensive side, Bowen Byram, is he going to continue his great plays? Matthias Samuelsson, Owen Power's taken some strides in the last couple months. What's that going to look like for those guys? Because we've seen the Sabres have success when those guys have really taken off, when their secondary players become, world beaters, when they go on that run. Jack Quinn will have a multi-goal game. Jason Zucker steps up when called upon. It's very interesting. I want to see what these guys bring for the Sabres going down the stretch. I'm very interested to see what that looks like. What Lindy Ruff does too with just the lineups as a whole. We talked about it a little bit with guys coming back healthy. It's going to be a very, very interesting, thing for the Sabres. And I'm also interested to see just how short some guys' leashes are going down the stretch, with how important it is, whether that be goaltenders, but even just players as a whole. We'll talk about all the guys being healthy, a guy like Jordan Greenway, some of the fringe guys, Jack Quinn. How long is their leash going to be in the lineup when you have guys returning healthy on such important stretches here? It's going to be just such an eventful final 25 minutes or 25 games in the season. And before we kind of continue this, a little shout out. Batavia Downs is having Cards for a Cause this Sunday at 10 a.m. This event, $5 from every ticket, will be a donation towards this cause and this event. So if you're free Sunday, stop on by. Batavia Downs, does a great job keeping the show afloat, keeping us in business. Quick plug for them. But before we talk about this final 25 games, guys, I didn't put this in the rundown, which is like kind of mind blowing to think about now, but Alex Tuck, his name has been, talked about throughout the season, throughout off season, what's going to happen is going to be extended. It feels like in the past couple of weeks, I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but the court of public opinion on signing Alex Tuck, I feel like has really changed in the fact that it used to be, the Sabres got to get him signed. He's the heartbeat of the team. He's, all this and that. To, is he worth that money? we've been saying it forever. The term and the money doesn't make a lot of sense, but it feels like the public opinion about keeping Alex Tuch in Buffalo for the money he wants, the term he wants, doesn't feel like people are on board with that happening. We have, 3 weeks till the trade deadline. I've always been on the page of, if the Sabres are in a playoff position or in that hunt, you keep him no matter what. You deal with the consequences of, if he stays or not. In free agency, there's no point in breaking up this team right now with how they are. And you know what? He does bring to the Sabres team currently. But with the Sabres only having like a little over $14 million in cap space going into next year, I just want to know, Bunty, where are you at with the Alex talk of it all? And I don't know. I feel like some people aren't as concerned of where he is or where he isn't. And, just kind of want to see this team basically go like all in on this 2025-2026 season.
Yeah, this is where I feel like I am a victim of the moment and situational things happening around, because I've been on board with you need to extend Tuch the entire season. And the reasons being is it's been, you don't want to destroy the morale of this team. You have guys like Dahlin and Thompson. You want to prove to them that you're serious about building this team, going in the right direction, and that if you have a bad season or things go sideways and Tuch leaves, will they want to be part of the solution in the future? And there was all this fear of it could spark a rebuild. And then later on, it became, well, you're having a good season. You don't want to throw that away for a draft pick or a prospect and then have the drought linger and continue. I do feel I'll say this. I am starting to slant my opinion on the whole, do you need to extend him part? What I will say is this. I know this is counterintuitive from the whole like building for the future. You can't trade him right now. You can't trade him. You have to keep him and try to make the playoffs. And if you don't, whatever, like at least you showed that you care about winning now as opposed to like 3 years down the road. So number one, that's non-negotiable. You have to keep him. Now, if he's willing to go down to the Sabres number, I'm open to extending him. 8 years, though, I said in the past, salary cap's going to go up. You might get 3-4 good years out of him, maybe depending on how he ages. 8 years is a tough pill to swallow, especially if he's trying to get $11 million. I think at this point in time, I'm out on that. If he wants to take something at $10 million, and I could accept it. I'm not going to love it, but I can accept it. But as this team continues winning, that's going to make a big factor in my decision-making, because say this team makes the playoffs, but Tuch isn't the end-all, be-all reason behind it. And he ends the season with like 32 goals, 65 points, and he's a plus 10. But in the playoffs, it's Tage and Dahlin and Norris and guys like that are contributing, and Tuch is getting like 2 points in like 5 games. I might go into the offseason thinking, well, instead of spending $11 million on Tuch, maybe I can use that money on solidifying other holes on our roster, and we have other guys that are going to be ready in the upcoming years, and maybe that's a better way to build my roster. But on the counter, if you go into the playoffs and down the stretch, Tuch has 15 goals in the last 25 games, and he's scoring 5 goals in the first round, and you win a playoff series, and all of this is, oh my God, Alex Tuch, this guy from Syracuse who calls Buffalo his home. I don't want to call him a local. I'm tired of when people say he's a Buffalo local. He's from Syracuse. That's 2.5 hours away. Half of them don't even root for the Bills in that part of the state. But like if he ends up being a key reason for their success down the stretch, well, then I might reward him in that situation. But I know that won't give me the answers for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 8 years down the line. But I think that'll give me the answers of where he fits on this team and what this team might need out of him in those situations. So that's going to be a tough one, because if they can show that they don't need him to take that next step, that's when you get other guys, and you might get 2 good players that fill a second line role, and maybe you can get a third pair defenseman, And that might be more vital for you to taking that next step than what an Alex Tuch is. And then the one other scenario I will bring up, before we get to 25 games, I won't say it now, but I do want to talk about this. Jack Quinn and what his role on this team is down the stretch, and should he be a trade candidate? Because there's a lot of people that just instantly want to just put him in any trade discussion, but quietly he's on pace for 52 points. So I'll let you guys respond about Tuch, and then let's talk about Quinn for a moment too.
Yeah, Tuch's a tough one because he does so many things at such an elite level, whether that's power play, penalty kill, forechecking. He's has a fair share of highlights when it comes to back checking too. He's a great player through and through. A really, really big reason I think why we're in the spot we're in right now. Although maybe his box score stats aren't anything, record year type of thing for him. But it's tough with him. I do think it comes, it's the classic opportunity cost debate. If we do sign him to a $10.5, $11 million deal, well, you still have to re-sign Benson. You still have to re-sign Kesselring, who's an RFA. I think Peyton Krebs is in there too, but they threw his name in the hat. And then you're going to have to make some decisions on some of your younger guys eventually too that are coming up through Rochester. Helenius is going to need a contract a few years from now. All that stuff starts to add up, starts to factor in with your decision making. I don't know if I'd pay him over 10.5. I think that's a bit rich. You pair that with the 8 years, and I just don't want it to be another Poso thing where the last 3 years of it you're just trying to survive and go from there. But he's a great player. I think right now, if at least from a PR perspective, outside the room, if you're talking what it looks like possibly inside the room, I think it looks better if they keep him. It shows, hey, we're ready. We're making a push here. If we trade him at the deadline, it looks kind of more likely than not, depending on who you get as a return, it more looks as if, okay, we're doing the better move possibly for our future because we're X million dollars away from reaching an agreement. We're probably never going to get there. I just don't think that's the right play. I don't think really Yarmo's even considering that, according to what Friedman reported a few weeks ago on how we're always looking to get better now instead of dishing guys off. So I think that's extremely unlikely. That's a good point you bring up, Bundt, about what's going to happen in the final 25 games. Is he going to just absolutely tear it up, and then playoffs come around, and then all of a sudden his AAV rises up another $2 million, and we're talking 12 million, 13 million on what he wants? Yeah, no, I think I'm out. The decision eventually might be made for Yarmo, depending on how these 25 games go, and whatever happens, I think I'm open to him coming back at the right price. But at the same time, I do think this team can survive without him unexpectedly. I wouldn't have said that 3 months ago, but I do think guys like Doan, Benson, Helenius has even shown a little bit. They just have a little bit of that gritty forecheck. They make it extremely difficult on you, and they play extremely, extremely hard. Similarly to Tuch, not to his level. They're not the same player, but I do think at this point in time, you could win without Alex Tuch.
And also acknowledge that in the past 5 years or 5+ years, the Sabres have had trouble attracting talent to come to Buffalo. So even if 11 million seems rich, what are the Sabres paying to attract similar caliber players? Or what are the Sabres having to pay lesser players to come here if they do let Tuch walk? So if you're in a situation where you let Tuch walk, but then to sign a 20-goal scorer, you have to pay $7.5 million. Well, then you might be like, well, maybe it's worth it to keep Tuch because at least he's signing with us for market value as opposed to having to pay somebody else $2 million above market value to come here. So those are all things where many markets across the league probably don't have to deal with that. But in Buffalo, you have to consider all their alternatives of if you let Tuch walk and you have that free space, are you going to be able to use it?
Well, it's weird because you look at the guys who they still need to sign. It's, if you let Tuch walk, you're still going to be close to the salary ceiling with just the guys you have in-house, where you still have to do a Zach Benson deal. You look at some of the other guys, Beck Mallon signs up. He's probably going to be paid around the same. Peyton Krebs, who knows what's going to happen with him. But you look on the defensive side, like Michael Kesselring's making basically nothing right now. I don't want to say luckily for the Sabres, they've been missing so many games, but, if he went out and had a year like Josh Doan did, who also just got paid, it's like, okay, well, now you're going to have to pay Michael Kesselring X amount of millions of dollars. the money's going to be drying up very quickly. And it's just interesting because we heard over the summer when the Kempe deal got done in LA, how that reset the market. And that kind of was like the bar for Alex Tuck. You see the Josh Doan deal that happens of, 7 years at basically $7 million. I'm hoping that basically almost reset the market back down to earth a little bit, where you see the role Josh Doan plays for the Sabres and how that really affects the pricing of Alex Tuck. Obviously we know the Sabres will be paying Jeff Skinner over $6 million next year not to play on the team. And that's put them in the predicament they're in now, having that extra $6 million. And, we really wouldn't even be having this conversation as much, but I feel like the more I think about it, at least it really starts to be difficult to keep Alex Tuck, even in a perfect world where, even if you're paying him that $8 million, which would be a dream, you're going to be paying it for, 7-8 years. His goal scoring is going to drop. We see what brings Alex Tuck so much success. It's his speed, his ability to be in plays. As he gets older, that's going to diminish a bit. Obviously those are problems for way down the line that really doesn't matter right now, but just something to be cognizant of as we move along is, the Tuck extension to me isn't, the end all be all for the Sabres. And I was with you, Bunty, throughout the season. Like, this is something the Sabres have to get done. They have to do it. But you saw the play and the increase we saw from Josh Doan. Like, that for me eases it. You've seen guys be able to step up, not to put all the eggs in the basket of the young kids, but Constant Hellemus, Noah Ostlund, them being able to step up, play a two-way game, eases it in the back of my mind where it's Alex Tuck isn't, the cornerstone to this team's success down the line as well. They can hopefully fill it with there and just with all the names there. Bunty, I know you talked about Jack Quinn, what he's doing. He's had such an interesting season, especially when you listen to all the thoughts that people have on 22, where, it's true, where he'll have games where he puts up 2 goals, have multi-point, that line with Zucker and McLeod is flying. Like, there's games where that line is the Sabres top line, and it's very noticeable. But there's also games where you won't see Jack Quinn as much. He can be a bit of a ghost. That was the problem with the kid line. Feels like all those years ago where they'd be great on the rush and that was about it. That got shut down. They weren't having it. For me, at least, Bunty, before I kick it to you to talk about Quinn, it feels like having him with that line has been able to help his game a little bit, where it's not completely based on the rush. We're seeing him get chances in zone, being fed by Zucker, by McLeod, but it just always feels like he is the odd man out for the Sabres team right now moving forward. But he's been able to keep that spot on the third line. But I want to know where you're at right now with Jack Quinn for the next 25 games. And, is he the guy odd man out going to be moved on from?
As I typically do, I'm going to give you a non-answer.
You're great. Yes.
This ain't a hedge, Carson. You gotta learn what that word means. You have too much AJ Cybulski influence on you right now. This is just informed opinions. The Jack Quinn scenario is all dependent on what his trade market is and what his value is. If there is a team willing to overpay for a 24-year-old former top 10 pick who's on pace for 50 plus points, then you give him up and you take what you could get. Similar to like when Casey Middlestat, you knew you didn't want to pay him $6 million a year because you knew he wasn't that true value. He was getting propped up by his playing situation in Buffalo, and you get an opportunity to get a young guy like Byram who still, like, another team might be a little down on. He's not playing up to his potential, and you take it because it's a fair value back. You're getting another top end guy, and you like apples to apples. You feel good about it. And if it doesn't work out, well, you didn't have complete faith in Middlestat anyway. So, like, if a team steps up to the plate and offers the Sabres a third line defenseman that could be a solid player right now and shore things up there, you take it. I think you take it. And then if you got to fill that third line void with another one of your several guys that can come back to the lineup at some point this year, maybe Kulik steps up at some other point, or another guy like Hellenis or Ostlund or whatever you need to do, you can survive it and you can still be pretty good. Now, if the market is weak, then you hold on to him, because here's the thing I don't really love about the Jack Quinn conversation. He has not developed the way we were all hoping he would develop. We all were hoping he was going to become a sniper, scoring 25 to 30 goals by this point of his career. He lit it up early on in Rochester. It showed promise early during his time with the Sabres. But then somewhere along the line, our expectations for him, Peterka, and Cousins just got out of control. And I'm not saying Cousins is good, but I think we went over the top, not us three, but like as a fan base, in our criticism of guys like Dylan Cousins. I think we've gone over the top in our criticisms of Jack Quinn. But it's all about context. Like for Cousins, the criticism came because he got paid. And he's not a $7+ million a year player, but that's what he's getting paid. JJ Peterka wasn't getting paid enough, and he was overperforming. Now JJ Peterka is close to an $8 million guy, and that's probably his worth. The reason I struggle with the Quinn hate is he's really not getting paid. He's a little over $3 million.
Got that bridge deal.
He got a bridge deal, a prove-it deal. He's on pace for over 50 points. He's going to end the season probably 17 to 20 goals, probably in that range. And at the end of the day, like, should I be killing a guy that is 24 years old, that's on pace for a 15 to 20 goal season with 50+ points and is a +1 right now? Like we know his deficiencies. He's sloppy sometimes with the puck. He's not good defensively. But the part that I struggle with is like, okay, he's on your third line. And he's getting paid $3.5 million. That's not bad for what you have him in that situation. And like 5-on-5 metrically, he's actually one of the Sabres' top point producers per 60 minutes. And where he really ironically struggles is on the power play, which is where you think he would have his most success. So it's one of those things where if they can get fair value back from him, yes, I'd be okay with moving him. But I want to hold on if I don't get something decent in return. I'm not giving him up for prospects. I'm not giving him up for something that can't impact my team right away. And I do think that Jack Quinn, in a way, has gone from being overhyped to now overhated. And the last thing I will say about Jack Quinn overall, because I do have his stats in front, and I know plus minus doesn't matter, and there's better pages. Quinn is on pace for the best season of his career. Like he previously had 39 points last year in 74 games. He had 37 and 75 2 years before that. 37 and 57 games right now, 37 points. If you look at JJ Peterka, he has 38 points in 57 games. Jack Quinn has one less point than JJ Peterka.
That's
in
crazy.
the same amount of games.
Wow.
Dylan Cousins has 43 points in the same amount of games, but he's a -13, and he gets a ton of power play time. And that's where he gets a lot of
power play points too.
So, like, those are both guys that are getting paid $7+ million a year. Quinn is getting paid half of that, and his production as a third liner is comparable to both of those guys who are getting a lot more opportunities to put up points. So I'll say this in conclusion on Jack Quinn. He's never going to be that 35 goal scorer that we were all hoping he can be. But I could see Quinn being a 20 to 25 goal player in the future that can get you 45 to 60 points if he has a hot season. And does that have a role in a team like Buffalo, if you're on the third line or splitting minutes in the second line, going forward when you know you're going to have contracts that you have to give people, and maybe Quinn can be one of your mid-level, more affordable contracts. I know people say his style doesn't translate to the playoffs, but quite frankly, like none of the Sabres styles translate to the playoffs. They don't play in the playoffs. They never get to the playoffs. Like I could say that for half the players on the team. So I know this is going to be unpopular. And AJ said I love Jack Quinn. That's an exaggeration. I do not love Jack Quinn, but I think we need to like mellow this out and realize like you can do worse. But if you have an opportunity, take advantage of it if something does present itself.
He's definitely a really, really good value deal, I think, right now as far as his contract goes. But you look at his last 15 games. This is just food for thought. He's a point per game player in his last 15 games. Like that is certainly significant. The fact he's only playing, looking at this, like if I had a guess, there's a lot of 13, 14, a few 16-minute outings. 14, 15 minutes a night. Like that's significant for him. A lot of his work too has been done 5-on-5. Like that's an area that's certainly valuable with this team. And to say he hasn't been part of the reason why the team's been successful this year, I think is just an absolute crime to Jack Quinn's name. He started the year off slow. He certainly has nights where he's an absolute ghost out there, but at the same time, like he matches those nights by creating chances. You look at it, the assists have been off the charts for him. It's been, of those 15 points in the last 15 games, I believe he only has like 5 or 6 goals, and the rest are assists. He's got 25 assists on the year this year, 37 points. So the goal scoring is not there, but I really like what I've seen from him with McLeod at times.
Yeah.
And it looks like Jack Quinn has taken a step. I still am higher, I think, on Jack Quinn than most. I think he has potential. Bundt said 45 to 60. I will say it, and I will stand by it. I said it earlier in the year. I think he's a 55 to 65 point guy. I think he's still around that 55 to 65 points when all is said and done with him. He's still young, 24-year-old guy who's drafted this is his 4th year in the league. So with Jack Quinn, I think a lot of it depends on who's around him. If he has good teammates around him, he will more likely perform compared to what maybe we hope, where he could carry a line by himself sometimes at the wing. Not the case. But I do think Jack Quinn's a valuable player. I don't know how it's going to look when things matter down the stretch here. I think these next 25 games are going to be really, really big, and whether or not he's a Sabre for 3 or 4 more years, or whether he's a Sabre even next year. So whether or not he can continue this momentum offensively, specifically out of the break, I think it's going to be really, really big. If he can do that, I don't think he's going anywhere this trade deadline unless somebody wows the Sabres. But Jarmo likes making big moves. This summer, I wouldn't rule it out, especially if he underperforms in the final month and a half.
And I want to say one thing too. He's a target of this fan base now, and I don't want to say that that's fair or unfair, but it's become a very common practice, and this is everywhere, fans of every team. But when you have that guy that you love to hate, you look for reasons. So every time he has a sloppy turnover that leads to a goal on the other side of the ice, or he makes a weak play where he's not being physical and he gives up a puck, or he doesn't forecheck. People are like, oh, look, see, he's playing lazy. He stinks. Like, we were doing the same stuff with Matthias Samuelsson when he was struggling. We did the same stuff with Dylan Cousins, and there's a lot of other players that we could point out when that stuff happens. But if you're going to be hard on him every time he makes a mistake, then you got to give him credit when he makes good plays. And I don't think the pendulum is balanced. I see a lot.
Swings back.
I see a lot more of pouncing on every single little thing that he does wrong, and never being like, damn, that snipe he made right there was...
Same thing with Owen Power.
Yeah, like, I was going to say, I hate attaching so much of myself, like, interest in both Jack Quinn and Owen Power, but they're two guys that don't get, they have a microscope on them at all times, but only when bad things happen. I don't know if you see that one Twitter account that's just, like, posts, like, phone videos of the TV of, like, every, like, minute Owen Power play throughout the game. And it's like, You look at the bigger picture.
You know what you want to tell them? Yes, they have not lived up to their draft position. They have not lived up to their potential. But they're also young men in their early 20s that are still developing, that we don't know the full story of what they will be in their NHL careers. And yes, you might have given up on them and moved on from them, and in your head already deemed them failures. But the team hasn't. And the fact of it is, you don't want to give up on these guys too soon, because if you get rid of them and they have success elsewhere, then you have egg on your face. And I also want to kind of add, it is not Jack Quinn's fault he was a top 10 pick. It is not Owen Power's fault that he was a number 1 overall pick, and that they came into bad situations and they didn't always have the best, most experienced players to go along with. And when we put our expectations on them, then we're kind of ignoring, well, when the Sabres defense got better over the last 20 games, even though Power wasn't putting up a ton of points, his plus minus kept rising. Why? Because he was doing his job. Yes. And Jack Quinn is doing his job. His job is not to play high-level defense. It's snipe every once in a while and bring some offense. And it's the same thing with the Bills. When they get guys like Elijah Moore, and fans instantly want them to be 800, 900-yard receivers.
Elijah Moore.
It's understanding players and their roles and what they're being asked to do. And I would say Jack Quinn is doing what this team is expecting and asking him to do this year. And I'd say the same with Owen Power over the last 20 games.
Yeah, I agree 100%, Bunty. Like what you talked about with Jack Quinn completely changed my outlook on him too. And Carson, you said he was a point per game the last 15 games. That you'll take that anytime. Like I think it really does go underappreciated, what he brings to the lineup. And it is, Bunty, right, changing that mindset of, we had these massive plans. He's going to be, the top Sabres scorer. But if you look at it on the Sabres third line as a 24-year-old winger to be, projected over 50 points, that's great. We were, ranting and raving about Ryan McLeod doing that exact same thing last season, putting up 50 points from, the third line as a 24-year-old. And now Jack Quinn's in that same spot, if not outperforming it. And it's like, this guy sucks when you get rid of him. It really is something. And, that Jack Quinn deal does look good throughout what they're paying him. And it makes me excited for what's next with him. We've seen the Sabres, and give Kevin Adams credit. I mean, I think we're at the point where people are on board with like, the moves he made were good. He got rid of guys. Yep. 100%. I think we've all been on that page too of like the moves he's made. Very good. It just didn't come all together, but the Sabres have done a great job of cutting ties with guys before, things maybe didn't go well with contracts or it's kind of sold high on some guys. They kept Jack Quinn out of that kid line. He's producing at that third line level. You're paying him at that. That's a good thing. Now we have 25 games left in this season. It's a scary thought. Bunty, before we talked, where you were saying how just the nerves and like it's so much emotion. I feel like I can't even quantify. But this last 25, the talk has been, the Sabres play 500 hockey. They'll get near 100 points. Do you think, one, is that going to be enough for them to make the postseason going 500? And two, just on those 25 games, like what do you need to see? What's something you need to see or you're excited seeing about the Sabres team? Because this is going to be the longest 25-game stretch, I think, in my life. But it's probably also going to fly by at the same time. So what do you want to see in this final couple weeks of Sabres hockey?
Yeah, so it's going to be a lot of games in a short period of time too. So it's not just going to be about what you want to see. It's can you handle basically the heavy workload, and do you have the stamina down the stretch to get the job done? It's tough, man. I'm struggling with everything. You look at the standings. It's been like a week or two since I've looked at the standings. You're right now 4 points up on Columbus and Washington, and then Ottawa and Toronto are both 6 points back. There was a little bit more leeway prior to the final week. This is going to go down to the final game or two. I really thank you, AJ, for commenting. I appreciate it, man. This is really going to come down to the last game or two of the season, in my opinion. I know some of the models. So the one model has them at like 68%. Other models have them in like the low mid 70s.
Yeah.
My own Mike Bundt model right now, unofficial. There is no actual like data or algorithm math calculations taking place. I put it at like 55 to 60%. I don't feel as confident now as what I did 3 weeks ago. Now, there's no rational reason behind that, but it's more so I need to see it down the stretch before I can 100% buy in. Now, saying 55 to 60%, I'm saying there's a better chance of it happening than not happening. But Columbus has been on a tear. Washington has been in the playoffs before, and there's rumors this could be Ovechkin's last season. I'm sure they're not going to want to miss the playoffs in that scenario. Toronto still has Matthews and Nylander. They're not going to give up at this point. And Ottawa, on paper, is better than all three of those aforementioned teams. Now, I do think the Sabres, when healthy, are better than those teams. But They have their first 3 games coming out of the break on the road. And you're talking about at New Jersey, a team that the Sabres have not had a ton of success against in recent years. And then you're talking Florida and Tampa Bay again. And my fear is, what if you go 0-3 out of the break? You could be back in an even spot after all of this. And it's one of those things where over the course of an NHL season, there's highs and there's lows. Oh, I love you, Pat. Thanks for that, man. I love you, man. It's okay. He's allowed to say stuff like that. I'll forgive him. But what I'll say is this: they're gonna have to come out every night with a high level of intensity, and they cannot take any games off down the stretch. I think they can do it, but they're gonna need their guys. They're gonna need Benson. They're gonna need Norris, and they're gonna need to keep battling each and every game down the stretch. Let's just hope they do it. I can't tell you if they will or they won't, but it's going to be interesting to see for sure.
I agree with a lot of that. I would say my probability right now, plus or minus like 5% each way, I'd say 60%. The book would tell you that they should be slightly favored, I think, at this point in time to make the playoffs. But as far as I view this, of course, it's the year that the Sabres actually look good. Everybody else in the Eastern Conference, for a majority of the season up to this point, has been really good. There's been nobody who's, other than, I guess, the Rangers, who've brought out the punt team. Nobody's really quite done the same thing. You look at Columbus, they're hot now ever since that. I got to chuck out that place. Regardless, you look at Columbus ever since they brought in Bonus as head coach. They've been lights out. I think 9-1 under his reign. Teams like that who've taken that next step, of course, that's the year. And B, to my point, of course, it's the year the Olympics comes back, and we have a 2 to 3 week break right in the season when you kind of feel like you're starting to play some really, really good hockey. Yes, it's not the be-all, end-all that you have a break, but rhythm and vibes and that stuff does kind of matter, especially when you're coming off of it was a week before the break happened, the 10-game winning streak ended or something along the lines of that. It was like 2 to 3 weeks. But regardless, they were playing lights out hockey, winning his 25-game stretch in franchise history. And, of course, that all comes to an end for 2 to 3 weeks. So I think the big tell is going to be the first 3 to 5 games coming out of this. You start 3 of those on the road. Florida, they're a team really battling through injuries. It's kind of just weird with them this year. Like, they don't know if they want to be in it or out of it because they had Stanley Cup success. It's like, all right, we kind of already been there, but at the same time, we should be there, but we're hurt. And then Devils, we've struggled against them in the past. They're not a great team this year, slightly above 500. Tampa, they're just as hot as we were when we played them and lost in overtime. So those are really, really big 3 games. After that, I think you do come home. So
yeah, to Vegas.
That's a great team as well, right? Like the schedule is like, I want to say the points percentage is like 59% the rest of the way here. It doesn't get easy. Night in, night out, they're going to have to bring it. Condensed schedule. You know there's going to be guys who are going to be battling through injury, playing through injury, guys who are going to unfortunately get hurt. It's just, you can't – your whole goal is to limit it. You can't ultimately end it. Hopefully the depth is good enough, which I think it is, but I'm not as confident as some people are that this team can make the playoffs. When I see it, I'll believe it.
Yeah, and I agree with Captain Josh Dono. If they go 1-1-1, on that first 3, that'll be great because after that 3-game road stretch, the Sabres go on a big home they go on a big home stretch of, 6 of the next 7 games will be at the KeyBank Center. Like that's going to be a big opportunity to get wins. The Sabres are a great team at home. They're much better at home than on the road. But that 3-game stretch is going to be either I'm going to be ecstatic because I would love 2 wins. If they can get that, I'll be happy. But if it doesn't go well, I'm telling myself those first 3 games don't count. They have a big home stretch coming up. They'll be fine. So I'm really trying to not put all my eggs in this first 3-game basket. But it's going to be a big telling point of how this team can return from break, how the players back in the lineup, how they're going, and kind of moving from that point. It's going to be just a crazy final 25. Out of those 25, 13 will be at home, so that's a little bit of a bonus for the Sabres. But it's gonna just be every game's gonna be so important. They have important games against Tampa, which they'll play, against the Panthers, Columbus, but they also have a lot of Western Conference games. They're going Sabres after dark with a bunch of 10 p.m. weekday games, which should be outlawed at this point. That's criminal. At this point in the season, every game's important. I'm going to be up at 2 a.m. watching the Sabres. But back to reality just a little bit, it's just you look at the standings. One last thing. The thing that's giving me a little bit peace of mind on all of it is there's a lot of Metro teams in that first couple teams out of the wild card. Those teams catch fire. They're not catching the Sabres or Bruins for a wild card spot. They're going for the Metro spot itself. So that's a little bit of peace of mind where, yes, you have to worry about the Metro teams winning games, but it's really those core Atlantic teams. You're going to look at, Boston, who's in that other wild card spot. Ottawa's right there. Florida can catch fire. They're back-to-back champs. And then you look above the Sabres, they're only 2 points back of Montreal and Detroit. So it's very close. Every game's going to matter. It's going to be just such – I'm going to hope memorable regardless, last 25 games.
You just increased my percentages, so.
Yeah. No, I'm still in that 55 to 60 part just because I can't go all in mentally because
we need a yes no from everybody in this this panel.
Simple yes or no.
I'll let you guys start.
No, Bundt, you got it. You started all night long.
I can take reins here. Bundt, you can close us out.
You go first.
Yeah. As of today, February 19th, I believe the Buffalo Sabres will end their 14-year playoff drought.
February 19th, 7:27 p.m. Yep. I would say yes, they will end their drought and make the playoffs. Carson's a no, so just
there's a certain gut feeling right now that I do feel.
Oh God, he doesn't think so.
I really don't know. It's just this Olympic break's kind of messing with me right now. If I lean one way or another, I'd say yes.
Carson, I'll say one thing to you, and I think this will make you feel a little better. I know you got to get going soon. We all know deep down about the 14-year drought. We carry that baggage. But the players on this team are just playing hockey. They are not. Jarmo told them, "Don't worry about the past." And I know it's impossible to completely put that away. But I have the one thing that gives me confidence is this team could have quit when it was struggling early in the year. They did.
0-3.
Yeah, they kept fighting, and we've seen them play some very good hockey. They've rebounded. They've handled adversity very well this year. They will get some guys back. And the point that Gatesy brought. Some of these teams like Columbus and Washington, even if they do catch up to the Sabres and Boston, it might end up just being in Metro standings, and those other teams in Metro might fall behind. So there is some other math that could work out in your advantage. I would say this. At the end of the day, do you think the Sabres have a good enough offense to make the playoffs? Your answer is probably yes.
No.
Do you think they have their top four is playoff caliber on defense?
Yes.
Yes. Has their goaltending been good enough so far this year?
At times, yes.
Yes. So the point of it being, from everything we have seen so far this season on the ice, it would lead you to believe this team should make the playoffs. The only thing that is keeping any of us back from confidently saying it is past disappointment and then afraid of a collapse. But that is an us thing, not a them thing. And then the final thing I'll say about it, well, my brain's literally forgetting what I was going to say. So I will move it on to you guys. But that's the important thing to realize. This team is confident. They just have to get the job done.
Yeah, for me, it doesn't have so much to do with the past as it has to do with everybody else is great. They're playing really, really good hockey. The teams that we're competing with, it's going to be a mass absolute bloodbath to the end. If there were 2 or 3 teams that we were going against, I'd feel a lot better. It's just you play these Eastern Conference games, and all of a sudden, every night is actually do or die because it could be a 4-point swing.
But here's the thing. And hockey is the one sport where a 5-point lead is a lot more than 5 points when you're playing 3-point games almost every night.
Really, 3-point lead, assuming Columbus wins.
Yeah, so what I'm saying, 3-point games, meaning if you get games to overtime, you steal points, you're going to get on that 500 percentage that you need to
right.
Just find a way not to lose games in regulation. Find a way to get games to overtime, and then you win half your games and you get the other half to overtime. Then you comfortably make it. what my point was that I forgot earlier is my only concern is this. When this team encounters adversity at some point, are they going to battle through it or are they going to crumble?
Right.
That is my only fear. Say they start 0-3 out of the break. Are they going to then turn that into 0-7 and then be 4 or 5 points back? Or are they going to find a way to respond and then win their next 2 and then keep in front of teams? That's the only thing we don't know, because when leaders like Tage Thompson and Dahlin and Tuck have been part of the losing for a long time, those are the guys I need to see the response when they hit adversity, because the rest of the team is going to follow their lead. And those are the guys that I need from this Olympic experience and from their past experience to carry this team down the stretch.
Carson, any final thoughts from you?
I'm ready for it to be back. That's I guess my final point. And I'm fired up for these meaningful games. Everybody asked for meaningful games in March. Well, you got them.
Yeah, we got them, and it's going to be a stressful final 25. Gentlemen, I want to thank you for stopping in tonight, Crossing Swords podcast. Thank you to the over 1,500 people tuning in tonight to listen to us talk about the Sabres during the middle of the Olympic break. We still got over a week or around a week until the Sabres are back on the ice, February 25th against the Devils. And gentlemen, it's going to be a crazy time, this final 25. This is all we wanted, but it feels like right now I want nothing less than to worry about every single game throughout the stretch. But Bunty brought up a good point. Lindy Ruff said all preseason, all in the offseason, they need to get to overtime. They need to get these points, and that's going to be a big thing in this final stretch. We need to see the Sabres get above that 500 mark throughout here, get to 100 points, and we can say the drought ended. But thank you again to everyone here who stopped in. It means a lot to us. And gentlemen, we will see you all next week. We've got some live shows in the works. But yeah, it's going to be a great time from there. Again, thank you to everyone. Enjoy the rest of your night. Enjoy the rest of the Sabres season. And let's go Sabres.